Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 468, Sunday Trustee Training, Family Trust Issues, and just definitely wanted to do this episode. We do our episodes a lot of the times based off consultations, conversations we have throughout the weeks. And this is one of those episodes, actually, most likely for a long time. We've had families in the family trustee arena, have many different type of issues. So we're going to talk about those issues. We're also going to talk about solutions with the issues that we've seen trustees run into for over 5 years now. So we're definitely going to talk about it. Really excited about doing that today. And so we're going to go forward from there. So really excited about that. And let's go. So, this episode is 468, Sunday Trustee Training, Family Trust Issues. So, a lot of the times, what we run into is a lot of families that are first gen. So, we'll address that. Traditionally, you're going to have a lot of issues in first gen, where second gen, there's still issues. And, in every generation, there's going to be issues inside of trusteeship that families are uh, having to just put together solutions for. And so some of the solutions that we've come up with, some of the trustees in our environment is, for example, having board meetings, having trustee meetings, for the family, so we talk to the families for years now about, doing at least a board meeting once a month, which lends to you having 12 board meetings. Then you get to, if you're going to do it, you know, every week, then you're looking at 52 meetings. So these are things that you can actually plan into the family schedule that allow families to be able to have consistency, have continuity, have vulnerability to be able to know that they're able to come together in an environment consistently and grow and share their ideals and things of that nature. So, definitely excited about that, working with those families in that capacity because those are small things that make the difference when you're talking about how to grow assets. A lot of times, you're looking at families that are sitting on assets, that have assets. And so, some of the issues that they run into is structuring consistent schedules, um, development of mindset when you talk about what is required of a first generation trustee as opposed to just giving it away to some asset manager that works for a bank or some law firm or something of that nature, some estate planner, even if you want to call them certified financial planners, these type of people. What does your family need to know? What does your first gen, second gen, however many generations need to know? uh, how to conduct things really more in a business manner than just an employee. So we're going to talk about those things once again all throughout this episode, just giving you an idea of what's required as a trustee, to actually facilitate and organize quality execution when it comes to projects. Projects could, range from individual projects to group projects. And so these are the things that we talk about with our families inside of the training. Okay, so they'll say, well, we'll do something that we addressed recently. It's a big deal, ladies and gentlemen, when you are dealing with what's called nowadays a blended family. And throughout history, they've had blended families. Blended family, traditionally in the public sense, means that there's a man come into a relationship with children already, and either possibly having children. Same thing for a woman; she could have children from a previous situation and walk into a situation where they're looking to have children, or or they're walking into a situation where both parties have children from a previous relationship and they're looking to even still have more children possibly. And then there are situations where once again they don't. plan on having children together, but the parties are, how do we say this? They're they're walking into the situation with, children. We address these things at the vault. Oh man, do I need a prenuptial? This is for the culture. The culture is a prenuptial culture. It is a litigious society. If men are afraid, quote unquote, not exact, but a plausible idea. If men are afraid in the states nowadays because they don't want half their stuff to get taken, based off of them being a breadwinner or not, why would you not be in trusteeship? Why would you not learn trusteeship? How is it not beneficial to learn trusteeship when you're in a position now where what the whole purpose of being in trusteeship is what? Because you have something to lose. When you're dealing with losers, they're going to lose. When you're dealing with winners, they'll find a way to win. This is a winning thought process. This is not the demise of the culture. This is not the downgrade of the culture. It is the upgrade of the culture. If we are here to advance the culture of, whether it's capitalism, family structures, well, what are you doing it in? What capacity are you doing it in? What structures are you doing it in? What systems do you have in place? What processes do you have in place? What procedures do you have in place? Anybody can say, "Oh yeah, I went to public school, Trust Christian Revolt. They didn't give me the best formal education on how to develop a solid generational wealth passing family structure." Right? So we have to learn those things. We have to put those strategies in place, and some of those strategies involve family planning and family meetings. We didn't need to go to an estate planner to sit here and have them tell us that we should have a meeting with our family about money that we're all getting up to make once a week or once a month. But because of people's emotions, oh, I don't want to have those hard conversations. I don't want to be emotionally vulnerable. Well, how do you get over that? You open the conversation. We all got to start somewhere. There is no, oh, we're starting at complete zero. So you're starting somewhere. And since you're starting somewhere, it's no problem with being vulnerable. Uh, it's no problem with being vulnerable where you at financially right now, because if you're planning on growing, this is the worst day somebody will ever see. This is the least that you'll ever have type deal under management. So, and even if it's not, you're always planning to know that you're going to receive better. By that being the case, it's okay to talk about where you are. This is where I'm at yearly. This is where we're at yearly. This is where we're at monthly. When you open that conversation with other family members, hey, they can either judge you or they can join you. Those are the issues that families are dealing with in trusteeship. Oh, I'm wondering if they're going to judge me and how much money we're making over here, or how much we're not making over here, or how much we're living in debt over here. See, those conversations may be tough because when we have to pull out family balance sheets, we might see some family members are in debt, large lump sums of personal debt. Well, we're in trusteeship. That's anti our philosophy. Right. So we might want to come together so we can make sure no one has any personal debt that's really a liability to the family. And by you having personal debt, you're taken away from the family because now you're creating personal obligations that doesn't allow you to give or contribute to the family. Well, we've seen this for years. Families that have to make these tough decisions, individuals that have to make these tough decisions. And these are some of the issues that people may run into, things that we've had come to us, and solutions we've had to provide or that we do provide to trustees in these situations, because it's not a one shoe size fits all. But what we do know is that these are issues that can be solved through proper prior planning, prevents a poor performance. There are families that build money in one generation and lose it. There are families that hold it for a few generations and lose it. And then there are families that have held it for generations. And these are families that have put together a system with processes and procedures that are successful. Meetings consistently, board meetings consistently, associating with other families consistently, taking risks, calculated risk consistently, being vulnerable in board meetings and letting multiple generations speak, having a quality voting system in place. Those are the systems that we put in place, those processes that we put in place, those procedures that we put in place. People talk about, oh, I'm trusteeship, I'm trusteeship. But are you living a lifestyle? Are you still talking about you own things? Or are you talking about I'm in control of them? Because it's trust Christian, know nothing, control everything. Feel free to reach out Christian at trustchristian.com for trustee training. Look in the description for the email. Feel free to reach out. Family trust issues. We get family trust issues all the time in case families are going to have a divorce. Oh, I'm going to have a divorce. And what if I did have a divorce? Well, at the vault, what we've seen is usually one partner makes it a point to learn trusteeship. Sometimes both don't. But we actually have had quite a few families that reach out that, yes, we've had husband and wife or couple show up to the actual workshops with their children. And either way, they have both parties sitting in the room at that time. So it's very important. One thing we've noticed recently is that everybody doesn't hear the same thing when people are listening. So, by that being the case, having multiple family members sit in a trustee meeting is very important, whether it's for making a decision or even for educational purposes, such as the trustee trainings. Why? Because most family members, one person hears one thing and the other person hears another thing, and that involves growing and conversations. Because now they can see, okay, this is actually something that I didn't hear, but you heard that. Those are some of the issues that we see families run into is questions of the education. Where do we go to get the education? How do we stay educated? One of the easiest ways to be educated as a family in trusteeship is by associating with other families that are in trusteeship. Well, clearly, if you're in private trusteeship, it's not like we're out here just having some party and soiree celebrating being private. That's not what goes on. But nevertheless, whether you know it or not, they actually do. And it's in the private sector and more in the charitable sector when you do see them having galas and things of that nature. But back to the point being of family wealth growing. One of the shows that is on the internet right now or on mainstream media is you could watch this show called Succession. And Succession really deals with family acting in trusteeship, making sure that you have successors in place, making sure that you have roles, responsibilities, and duties for the family's members in place, and things of that nature. People say, "Oh man, I don't want to force my kids to do this. I don't want to force my kids to be a trustee." Okay, you think, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, we've seen family members in trusteeship. That's what happens. It's not easier, but it is harder if the family members are not in trusteeship. When you didn't give them directives or responsibilities on how they're supposedly going to inherit the money. A lot of the issues we run into, even with first generations, they'll say, "Oh, well, I don't want my kids to work as hard as I had to." That's a bad philosophy. Two, they'll say, "Oh, well, I don't want my kids to have to live the way I grew up." Okay, so at the end of the day, are these family members able to be productive? Are these family members contributing to the family now, or are they taking? And that was something that we talked to with a third generation recently, in entrepreneurship, investing in the states, and capital raising and asset management. They literally told us, you want to groom the family to give back to the family, because stealing from the family estate is a thing. It is what it is. Stealing from the family. So it is no benefit to steal from the family. The best thing to do is train the family members to be in a thought process of, hey, when there's since I have skills, talents, and abilities, since I've been privileged by being blessed by having a family member that thought about me before I came, now you have families that what? That are actually giving back into the family estate, back into the estate, to the family bank. Many of those things. They're groomed. So once again, why give them an option for failure when you're putting a system together for success? That system for success says family members don't take when they've been given something previously. They actually learn reciprocity and give back immediately. Maybe it's a tough call for some people. See, this is a different philosophy in trusteeship where you got families working together, you got multiple people working together. This isn't a job anymore. See, this is why foreigners get it over Americans. See, Americans definitely have implemented a Western philosophy of trusteeship, but foreigners seem to understand family. Certain cultures seem to understand family. Whereas in the States, it's, oh, you're 18, you move out, you go to school, you get a job, you build your own family, your nuclear family. And then when you look at the stats, why do you need welfare? Why do you need Social Security if your financial plan is gonna work? By going to school, getting a job, and working. And then you're going to work for 30 years, maybe for a job, 50 years. We seen a report actually today from paychecks.com. Their research and development department is saying now the great resignation, retirees are going back in the market, taking part-time jobs. Oh, they're bored. Oh, 53% of them plus aren't making enough, don't have enough money in retirement. Statistically, it's been this way since they've had Social Security in the States. The numbers aren't changing because it's a system for failure. It's a system for individualism. But when you get into trusteeship, sometimes it looks as though the families are winning. The Kennedys, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Buffetts, the Gates, the Zuckerbergs, these last names, the Smiths, these names, they're families holding generational wealth, holding on to capital assets from one generation to the next. Families, they have assets in multiple jurisdictions. It's not one. It's not one family member managing those assets. And it's not one asset that they're managing. They're managing multiple assets. So, of course, multiple family members have multiple educations: accounting, lawyers, business people, medical people. It seems as though the successful families have systems in place that encourage the family to give back, to contribute to the family, not to take. These are philosophies that are almost the antithesis when you talk about it from a public school perspective. The family has its own internal values. Public school had its own internal set of values. You couldn't have your family take the test with you. But in family trusteeship, before you make a good decision or a bad decision, you vote on it. There's systems in place, just like the public school system is in place. When you want to find out if your decision was right or wrong, the teacher lets you know. But most people in the public sector, their family is not their mentors. Their family is not their heroes. Their family is not their role model. This is the family trust issues. Your mother and father possibly, grandparents possibly, they didn't grow up in trusteeship. They may not be a good teacher of how they made wealth, even if they did do it, and they're passing it along to you, and you're in a position where now, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to pass it along? Do you have the skill sets to pass it along with confidence? It's kind of challenging to do that when you haven't been given a proper role model on what a trustee looks like. That's what trustee training provides, a role model. Trust Christian, know nothing, control everything. It's in the slogan. Did your parents say trust Christian, own nothing, control everything? Did your parents say own nothing, control everything? Or did they say you got to grow up, you got to get an education, you got to get a job so you can do what? So you can own a car. Because I'm not trying to give you a car. You got to buy your own car. Okay, well, I'm not going to buy you your first house. You got to go get your own house. Ladies and gentlemen, we've lived this life very well. And yes, we know families that when it's time for someone's child to have a child, the grandparents to be build houses, build a house on their acreage that they have from ground up for their children and their grandchildren. So they can be right next door, so they can walk out their house and walk into their children and see their grandchildren. Oh man, I don't know if I want to live next to my parents. They were giving you a free house. You think you might live there now? See, these are the philosophies that are the antithesis, once again, of public opinion or public education. Hey, why would you live next to your parents? You got to grow your rings. You got to go into commercial debt. You don't want to pay the private family bank so you can have a arbitrary mortgage or a private family debt obligation to pay the family something that because they proactively built this house and now they're actually they did take out a loan or something privately, or maybe they had capital privately. And so we're going to put into the family because they did create a house for us that we have a choice to sit in or not sit in and figure it out. These are the options that obviously wealth, money is able to give people. So we're excited to work with the families that are enrolled in trustee training right now, and anyone that reaches out, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, Christian at trustchristian.com. Definitely look forward to it. Trustee training. Once again, we deal with these questions all the time. Many different scenarios of families working together. People say, oh, well, what if I want to invest with my brother and my sister and my mother and my father? Well, do you think it might be wise to invest in the proper position as a trustee? When that's what's really going on, to hold families together financially. It puts together indirect and directly a system of accountability for your actions, accountability for your thoughts and what you want to implement. It allows you to have other people give you quality feedback on your ideas on whether they're workable, not workable, whether you have resources, whether you don't have resources. Have you been trained to have open, candid conversations with your family? And if you haven't, the vault helps address that. And if you haven't, what makes you think you're going to make it when you're competing or creating Other families are creating in trusteeship for generational wealth. They're not doing it any other way. Trustees that are in family trusteeship situations, they're doing what we're talking about. They're having these conversations. They have the systems in place. So this is who you're competing with. This is who you're creating against. Period. And are you going to beat them or are you going to join them? And whether you all know it or not, people in trust deal with people in trust. People work together when they have money. Big money works with big money. Capital works with capital. It's the most intelligent thing to do. By that being the case, people that like each other do business together. People that trust each other do business together. People that respect each other do business together. People that are in trust do business together. The communities that you see that are successful do business together in trust. Christian at trustchristian.com. Family trust issues, we help solve them. Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Peace and joy.